And now for something completely different.
Smoke
medical
weed every day.
The following thoughts on Hoppe Hour represent Brian Hoppe and that's it. Listener discretion is advised.
Live from Tampa Bay, you are tuned in to Hoppe Hour.
He's the voice of a generation that got screwed by the baby boomers. Welcome back to Hoppe Hour.
Hoppe Hour. Hoppe Hour. Hoppe Hour starts in 4, 3, 2, Hoppe. Hoppe, Hoppe. This is Hoppe Hour with Hoppe.
What's going on? This is Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe, and let's get right to it. On the show is radio legend Bob Rivers, and shout out to BJ Shea, one of my good friends, for helping me book this interview. But let's get right to it. What's up, Bob?
Well, actually, I suppose I should begin by apologizing for being a boomer and screwing your generation.
It's all good fun. It's all humor. I'm just joking around. So I've interviewed like Brother Weeze, and I've interviewed other people that are boomers. And every time I play that intro, I'm like, I wonder if they'll say something. Like I was very sure that Weeze would say something, but right when that played, I was like, oh, Bob's gonna say something.
Well, it's funny because I kind of agree with it. I think that, what generation are you?
I'm a millennial.
Is it okay to ask?
I'm a millennial.
You're a millennial. Both my sons are millennials.
Yeah.
And I think that, I don't want to say wealth, but I think the resources accumulated by the baby boomer generation are a little out of whack because the generation was so huge that I do think it makes it more difficult for a millennial.
Well, even I was having a discussion with my mom, and she's 66, and I was kind of like venting to her because like I just kind of had a hard week. Nothing bad, but just like your typical week of like work and just dealing with a lot of things that make you anxious. And she kind of said something that kind of made me think about how you guys had it a little bit easier. Like, I know you guys went through your hardships, but she goes, my life wasn't that hard at 30. And that would have been 36 years ago for her. So that was kind of where it was like, that sort of made me laugh. But that was one of those sweepers that I made, or I came up with when I was allegedly smoking some weed. I came up with an idea, and I come up with my best ideas, and I honestly need to make some new sweepers.
Can I ask you a quick question?
What's up?
You're alleging that you smoke weed.
Yes.
You would certainly know, right?
I might know. It's to keep one of my jobs, you know, because not everybody's converted. And this might be a world where I have my medical card, or it could be all of a joke, you know? That might have been how I came up with that baby boomer sweeper.
Well, to answer your question, I do not smoke weed, but I am a cancer patient, and I have used tinctures and gummies for for nausea relief. Yeah. And it's an amazing medicine. But to me, and if we could start here with this story.
Yes.
I got sober in 1989 from all recreational drugs except for espresso.
Espresso's the best. You got to have espresso.
Yeah. Well, lattes are the cocaine of the 90s. But so I have a complicated relationship with cannabis. In one sense, whatever's good for whoever. I mean, my wife likes a glass of wine. For me, it made me paranoid. It was a little bit of a weird thing for me. So I was really happy to not use that or alcohol or cocaine or any of those other things.
Yes.
For, something like 34 years. But when I started dealing with the big C and the migraines and things like that, it was recommended to me. And so I tried it, and there's nothing that does nausea better. I don't know if that's a jingle or not, but just to answer your question.
What do you feel when you take edibles, especially with having cancer? Like, do you feel kind of sleepy? Do you feel like hungry? What are some of the things you feel?
Well, very dose dependent.
Yes.
And the important part, everyone is different. So whatever works for me, your mileage may vary, and I wouldn't presume to give anybody advice. For me, being predisposed to being anxious on it, it needs to be a small dose. Something like 5 milligrams, something that will get me. There is a little euphoria. I'm not going to deny that. But it's the kind that makes music sound good. Not, like when I was younger, there was no amount of bong hits that couldn't be improved by having more bong hits.
Now, you talked about getting sober in 1989, correct?
That's right.
And in the spring of 1988, you were on air for 11 days in a row during the Baltimore Orioles losing streak. Was that one of those moments where maybe you got sober because you were crazy enough to do that?
That was pre-rehab. If you're, it's complex, but yes.
Because that is insane.
I'll just go yes.
I've been up for 36 hours in a row, and I feel loopy after about 28.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't really up all that time. There were long concerts, King Biscuit, Flower Hour, that we would play in the middle of the night. That would be 90 minutes long. Sometimes we would put together 2 or 3 hours of pre-recorded material in the night. And I would do something that you're familiar with, a little bit of voice tracking in between.
Yes.
So they made sure they weren't going to kill me, but it was scattered naps, and probably not the most healthy thing.
Yeah,
but it was
it says here that you had some health issues afterwards. What were some of the health issues?
That's a polite way of saying rehab. I did what Amy Winehouse should have done.
Yeah. That is funny. I love how there's like ways that Wikipedia will write things about people, and then you hear the actual truth, Oh,
yeah. No. Yeah, I've never edited my Wikipedia or hired anyone to do it. So it's a little disjointed, but everything in it is actually pretty close.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. It's crazy. You got to work with some of the best radio stations of all time. You were at 98 Rock in Baltimore. You were at KISW. You're at KZOK. Then you're at KJR. Is it crazy to think that, like, sometimes a radio DJ, it seems like, will have a good run and then they end up going to, like, Clarksville, Tennessee or something like that. You pretty much always were a major market superstar. It's very admirable.
Well, that's nice of you to say. It's really weird. I don't feel that way. And in some ways, you left out WAAF in Boston.
Oh, wow. I don't know why I don't see that here. I mean, wow. Yeah, I see that. Bob and Zip. Yeah. That is crazy.
That was where I got, exposed to incredible management who were totally into teaching and encouraging talent. So many monstrous people came out of that particular company, and I had great mentors there. And it was a move-in. It was a Worcester radio station that had a big signal in Boston, and the competitor for us there was WBCN, one of the greatest radio stations of all time, with one of the greatest morning shows, a guy named Charles Lacodera. And so we were the little engine that could, trying to break into Boston from like 30, 40 miles out. And we did it. It became a Boston radio station. They put up some translators. And only a few years ago, on its 50th anniversary, did that station get bought by Jesus.
Yeah. It's funny. I click on it and it says it's running K Love Radio. And what I love is these religious radio stations take off all the like evil rock and roll. Like I'm from Chicago and they took 97.9 The Loop. I love how these companies just ruin rock radio, man.
Well, they look, hey, they didn't take it. It was for sale.
I know.
And they bought a stick. I mean, I think Jesus secretly enjoys Ozzy. I do.
Now, I was listening to a lot of your shows online last week, getting ready for the interview. And your show, specifically, there's a YouTube page called Tapes from the Radio. And it has like 12 of your shows. And I was listening to a lot of it while playing video games. And your show was very existential for the 90s, because I feel like in the 90s, everything was very shock jockey. Everything was sex, porn, drugs, rock and roll. And your show was very smart. Like you were talking to your grandma, and even your interviews, you were interviewing this woman that believed that Jerry Garcia was in like her heart or something. And you were very nice about it, even though it was religious, or not religious, but it was just kind of BS. Like, I don't believe in any of that. And I thought that was very cool, Bob, was that you were never like demeaning to people.
Well, I'll tell you, I enjoyed shock jocks. I thought they were cool. I'm a huge fan of Stern back in that day, and an even bigger fan of him today. But if you're going to be on the radio, and one of the things I learned early on from my mentors, willing and unwilling, the ones who knew they were helping and the ones I was just a fan of, is that you got to be yourself. So to be yourself means listening to your gut, what works for you, being influenced by people that are great, but just take from each one of them the part that works for you. The part that worked for me, by listening to Stern was, don't edit yourself. Say what you're really thinking. Let your subconscious out, But being a shock jock didn't work for me because I was raised really religiously strict. Not strict, but, I was raised to believe in being a pussy, being nice to everybody. Is that the way to say it?
Yeah.
And so I couldn't fake anger because I didn't have anger. And even today in politics, there's so much divisiveness that I can't participate. So you have to be who you are. It's very nice what you said. I enjoy the compliment. But also in our show, it was an ensemble cast. And we had a mom raising kids. We had, Spike with a stepdaughter. We focused on family and the real issues of our lives, and then tried to make them funny. And it was a different kind of show. In fact, in a weird way, I don't think we were more like an AC or CHR type of show, in that we weren't trying to be controversial. We wanted, like, a mom to be in the car with the kids and not be afraid to turn it off.
Was that a compliment you would get a lot from people?
Yes. But what's weird about it is we're on, album rock and classic rock. So it worked the other way too. Some people came in from out of town and went, I don't get this show. This would never work anywhere. There's no edginess to it. And there was some edginess to it, but not for the time, not the 90s.
So I was talking to BJ Shea. I don't know if it was on the phone or in text message, and he told me that it was crazy to be friends with you and also be competitors with you and to see you at the morning show boot camp. And I thought that was cool, that it seems like in Seattle, you can tell me if I was wrong or not, but it seems like people were more friends than, like, let's say here in Tampa Bay, where everybody hates each other. It seems like in the Pacific Northwest, people were able to be competitors and friends. Even like with the current Mig show versus BJ Shea at KZOK. I listened to the first day, and Miggs gave BJ Shea a shout out and was talking about how he got lunch with him. And if it was here in Tampa, it would be like some war.
Oh, yeah. It would be like cable news, let's face it.
Yes.
Rock'em sock'em robots. The other side is going to destroy the world. There's the way politics is. The answer to that question really has more to do with the city of Seattle, and the kind of at least it did when I was there. People are more polite. They can be a little passive aggressive, which BJ would confirm. But when it came to competing, we're all brothers and sisters. And we used to have radio dinners once a month where all the competitors, me, BJ, jocks, talk show hosts from Cairo, top 40 guys, we would all get together at a restaurant and hang out and be brothers. And I don't know that happens in a lot of markets.
Nope.
But it did happen in Boston. I mean, Charles Laquadera invited me to his house, but it's kind of a rarity. And let me relate it to this. When you're watching an NFL game and someone crushes the shit out of the other team, and you look at the quarterbacks and the coach, and afterwards they go and give each other a hug or shake hands.
Yeah.
That's professionalism, isn't it?
I think so. I'm never a fan of the players that just walk off. Like in the 2011 NBA Finals, I'll never forget when the Heat lost to the Mavericks and LeBron and Dwayne Wade walked off. It just was such a classless moment.
Mm-hmm. I think so. Yeah. So I mean that's the way it was in Seattle, but there's other aspects behind that, because BJ and I became friends when we met at Morning Show Boot Camp.
Yes.
And I think it was around 1990 or so. So, we're talking 34 years ago. And we met at what was essentially a support group and an institute of higher learning for doing radio. That's what it is both those things and still goes on today. And so we were all brothers there. And, he wasn't on the air in Seattle until, I don't know, 8-10 years later. So what am I going to do? Hate him as soon as he moves into town? No, he's a great guy. He's one of the funniest,
yes,
unfiltered, wittiest, real guys on the radio that I've ever met, which is not surprising because he started on the Brother Wease show.
Brother Wease is the
man. And to me,
man.
Brother Wease, he's the godfather of all that.
Well, the thing about Wease that I love is his coaching tree. One of my main reasons for going into radio is Opie and Anthony, and he mentored Opie, he mentored Stephanie Miller, he mentored BJ Shea, Jamie Lassau, who's now on Fox News, and has touring comedy. He was with him 10 years ago. It says a lot about a man where you have people that come from your show and then Brother Wease supports them. That is the biggest part that I love about Wease, is that he's not mad that they went on to bigger markets. He's like, good for you guys.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he has he has a big bucket of confidence.
Yeah, he does.
In being who he really is, that would make it not possible for him to resent someone else's talent. It's just not in his makeup, and he just loves being real. I think he does it as well as anybody in the business. And so, yeah, he was one of the first guys I looked up to. But really, the first radio influence. You want to hear a story about the 1950s and 60s?
Yes.
You're a millennial. How old are you, Ryan?
30.
30 years old. Oh, boy. I have that 30-year-old body back.
Yeah. I've been swimming and lifting. I'm very much trying to not have issues in the next 30 years. I've been really trying to, I'm not eating like the best, but I'm not eating bad. But I'm definitely turning 30 and my 20s being over. I'm definitely like trying to take care of my future.
You're feeling it, yeah.
Yeah.
You're feeling like you're on the down. You're not. You're doing great. Anyway, although I would say this to someone 30, because I've said it to my own son, who's an older millennial, but I would do edibles rather than smoke. Putting things in your lungs has been told to me to not be a good thing. I don't know.
Well, here's one thing. It's so weird. either somebody dies from smoking all the time or some live till 90. I always find that fascinating.
Yes. And there is no fairness to it, by the way. There are people who are total health nuts who, get something really annoying at a younger age. And then there's people, I knew this guy, he's in the Radio Hall of Fame too, a concert promoter from Seattle who ran his own Schick Shadle. He ran all of these rehab centers, and his name is Pat O'Day. He chain smoked and lived to a ripe old, I don't know, upper 80s, near 90, So, yeah, you can't tell someone else what to do to be healthy or not. I'm sorry I did that aside. Anyway, my first ever mentor in radio occurred when I was 11 or 12 years old. And he is in the Radio Hall of Fame, and he is credited with being the father of the inventor of free-form talk.
Who?
You have any idea who that might be? From New York.
Let me guess. Is it, who's the guy that Stern talks about? Bob Grant?
No, but Bob Grant was amazing, as were Bob and Ray on WOR?
Yeah,
but
weren't they,
it's,
wasn't Bob and Ray, like when it was like, they used to do like, it was before talk radio. Wasn't Bob and Ray like sort of like a TV show on the radio?
It was, if I recall correctly, they just did bits really well in characters, kind of like Smothers Brothers type stuff, only more creative. And they were a morning show on the big news talk radio station in New York for a long time. And I would listen to them. But that station at night had a talk program from 10:15 to 11 p.m. hosted by Gene Shepard. And Gene Shepard was a famous author as well. He wrote a book called In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash. You should look that up. He literally came on to the, what is that? What is that song? Dun, 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 dun.
I know what song you're talking about. It's funny. I'm looking up Gene Shepard on YouTube right now, and you're right about the 10, 15 to 11. Each one of the videos is 44 minutes long.
Yes. I recommend you listen to him. He literally is the father of radio for me. I was growing up in Connecticut and started with friends of mine, but listened to him every night. And he would come on and tell stories, totally improv, all by himself for the 45 minutes. And sometimes he would comment on contemporary things. Was
he like Phil? Was he like Phil Hendry?
I would say that is Phil Hendry still with us?
Yes.
Good. Okay. I'm at the age where I have to ask.
I know, right?
I would say that guys like Phil Hendry, guys like Tom Likas.
I love Tom.
Well, Tom loved Gene Shepard. And I would say that generation grew up on Gene Shepard. And we used to pass around reel-to-reel tapes of Gene Shepard. This is before we could, record MP3s. I have a complete collection. Anyway, he would do things. Let me give you just an example. He would do things like, and he called his people night people, and he would talk about how the bestseller list for books on the New York Times was rigged and how it wasn't accurate. He would say and by the way, this is before computers. This is before, now you can, at the point of sale, there's a informational record of everything that happens. Back then, for the New York Times to create the bestseller list, they would call bookstores and they would go, what's selling? What do people want? And so they would do like surveys, and in the old days, surveys were the closest you could get to data. And so he said, the way the books are, listed, it's not really fair. So he came out one day and said, there's this book that you should really read. It's called I, Libertine. And he said, this is the greatest book ever written. It's a wonderful book. You should go to your bookstore and ask for it. And I may not be telling the whole story, verbatim, because we're talking 50 years ago. But people went to bookstores and asked for this book, and everyone said, we're out of it. I said, well, let me get me on a waiting list. And you might be able to guess, but the New York Times surveys all these bookstores, says, what are people looking for? And everybody wanted I, Libertine. We can't keep it in stock. We can't get a shipment. It's so rare. And I, Libertine appeared on the New York Times bestseller list, a book that didn't exist.
That shows how important radio was back in the day. I just don't think it has that same pull. I think podcasting might, like Joe Rogan, but that just shows even before I was alive, because I remember 90s radio, but it just feels like that is when it's like everybody was listening.
Well, let me tell you the rest of the story, as a guy named Paul Harvey would say. After this was exposed, he got a co-writer, and they wrote a book called I, Libertine, and they put it out, and it became a New York Times bestseller. So that's, yes, power. There's so much power. I don't think, because we have so many distribution channels today, I don't think it's possible to have that kind of ubiquitousness. I mean, if you talk about what's the most ubiquitous entertainer of 2023, 24 right now? Who's the most ubiquitous? Everybody knows them.
I would say Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift. That is the... Hold on. This is an old-fashioned bell that our old radio guys used to use.
Yeah.
you probably don't need a prop like that. Yes. So Taylor Swift. And in our day, it was rock stars like the Beatles.
Elvis.
And a big radio show. Yeah. And Stern when he was really big. So you're right. It's different now. It's fragmented. I think podcasting is where it's at for free-form talk.
It's all about monetizing and how to make money from it. Joe Rogan said it best. To do well in podcasting, you have to get famous. I love that line.
Yeah. Interesting. I think he's right. I mean, to do well in anything, you have to get famous. But, boy, what's the path to fame now, Ryan? You're a young buck. You're a young Jedi trying to utilize the Force. How do you get famous in 2024?
I think you have to come up with a gimmick for like reels on Instagram or TikTok, because I've been thinking about it. Because then, like 2 years ago, I did coffee creamer reviews where I would get like, I don't know, Reese's peanut butter coffee creamer, and I would review it. And it would get like 10,000 views on Instagram and on TikTok. But then when I put up a reel of my podcast, it gets about 1,000 views. So I definitely think doing something online that's kind of like original content, because then people will look you up and find your podcast, I would say.
But what you're talking about also is something that's super focused. Like if people are looking for that, they're going to find you first. I find myself getting stuck in quicksand on YouTube sometimes, because I'll be interested in something and I'll search for it. And then I'll come across a program, fully produced by some guy or gal who's talking about exactly what I'm looking for. And I'll watch it for a half hour. And I'll look and they'll have a couple 100,000 views or more. And a lot of them are influencers, reviewing products too. It's funny. If you actually want to know about a product, you want a commercial for that product. And some people are putting out 30-minute reviews of like, technical equipment and stuff. And I'll suck in and watch. The other thing I'll do is I'll end up looking at concerts from when I was a kid. And someone has restored, the audio, and the video is kind of crappy, although I think artificial intelligence is going to fix that. And so we have access to all the world's entertainment and all of human knowledge and all of human bullshit.
Yes.
we have access to all of that on a device we can hold in the palm of our hand.
It really
Ryan,
is crazy.
I don't know if you have any idea what life was like before that.
There was a picture of a Radio Shack ad from like 30, 40 years ago, and it had like 25 devices that this guy was holding. And the meme said, all of this is in your pocket now. It was crazy.
Yeah. It's an exciting time, although we boomers did screw you over because we still have assets. But pretty soon, boomers will be gone, and it's going to be your problem, this world. Any ideas on how to fix it?
Not sure. I got a vasectomy. I don't want kids, so I know I don't have to worry about I don't have to worry about that happening.
Yeah. Wow. At 30? Are you married?
I got it at 28. My ex kind of influenced me to get it after the whatever happened with Roe v. Wade like 2 years ago. And I just was kind of like, I can get it. I have 5 more years to get it reversed. But man, with the way things are, I'm like, I don't think I want kids because I find them so irritating and annoying. Like some people, if you're at like, let's say, going out grocery shopping and you see a kid, some people will be like, oh my God, that kid's so cute. And I'm just like, shut the fuck up. Like, I just find kids so annoying.
Okay. Well, so I respect that because actually, you should really want a kid or even a turtle, a pet turtle. If you should want to take care of it if you're going to go to the pet shop and get a turtle.
I've had cats my whole life.
Okay, you've had cats. And what would they, if they could talk, what would they say about how good of a owner of cats you've been?
I'm a great owner, but I'm moody. Where like sometimes I'm watching TV and I'm not giving them attention and I move around a lot at night and they have to sleep on the couch, which is right next to my bed because I live in an efficiency room. So it's like the bed's right next to the couch and that they have to be like 10 feet from me because I keep waking them up. But I would say my cats liked me. Maybe the cats that I grew up with when I was a kid, they would say I was a very hyper kid with ADHD that would always play with them. But I would say my cats would give me a good Yelp review.
Good. Okay, that's important. And Yelp is something a dog would say. But okay. So as far as kids go, keep the vasectomy if you don't like them. All right, where were we? So I was a little kid. I was listening to Gene Shepard. He was amazing. I wrote him a letter because I was building a high school radio station, and I said I'd like to interview him for my high school radio station, much like you called me and said, "Hey, want to do a podcast?" And guess what? He said yes. I took a train. I took off school, took a train to New York, walked into WOR with my own reel-to-reel tape recorder because they were a union shop, and so we couldn't use their gear. And I sat in with Gene Shepard for 45 minutes, and he told me stories and asked me about wanting to be in radio.
Do you have that audio?
That's your answer. God, I wish I did. Because obviously I can't remember, anything other than, he was as big as Taylor Swift to me at that time. So I had it. It was reel to reel. I played it on the high school radio station, and I think my mom threw it out.
My mom's thrown out things that I recorded too of like, well, here's what happened. It's not really my mom's fault. When I was growing up, I used to record fake radio shows on my computer like 20 years ago. And my dad went on my computer and saw that he was super religious. And he saw that I had like Family Guy and all these cartoons on my computer. And I had one 1 minute long porno video on my computer. And he wiped my hard drive. And I had all these radio shows that would be amazing to post now, where I was like in 6th grade trying to be a shock jock. And that was something that I would do anything to get that, but it just doesn't exist because it got wiped.
Yeah, that's a shame. But remember, that was what life was like. I mean, we don't know what life was like in 1923 unless someone makes a show, a Yellowstone show about it. In my childhood, my parents would take a picture of, the kids. They would hire a photographer. He would come over. God knows what he charged, and he would take 3 pictures, and that would be the only picture we would have for maybe 2 or 3 years, and they'd hire the photographer to take another picture. So, history in your generation and part of mine, we're going to have access to every transaction, access to every photo, access to artificial intelligence that can scour all of this and put together, a complete picture of who you are or anybody was. In 1,000 years, I mean,
Well,
it's going to be kind of crazy, right?
here's what's weird is I think the Gen Z kids and this next generation of kids born in 2010, they're trying to call it the alpha generation, which I think is very douchey.
I know they go back, they go to the Z and then they go back to the A. I saw that the other day.
Well,
you don't like that?
I think it's just going to make the kids cocky. They're going to be like, oh, I'm an alpha. It's annoying. But yes. I think they're going to have better memories they're going to remember more from growing up because they got video proof of it. My parents would get a VHS tape or one of those recorders in the 90s and record like my Christmas and birthday. And my mom got like 7 of them converted and I uploaded it to YouTube. And it's like, I was able to unlock memories that I hadn't thought about in 25 years. And I think about all the memories that I just don't have because like it's hard to remember everything. And I think these next generations are going to remember almost too much. Like I feel like there's a lot of things that I don't want to remember, like either being made fun of in school or being bored in class. And I think these up and comers, these next generations are going to know too much.
Yeah. Well, you can't stop progress. I don't know what's too much and what's not enough. I know that's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
So having access to all the world's information, like we were trying to fix some little technical issue earlier, meant that I could find 50 videos on how to fix it, but who's got the time to watch them all? So, and we used to have this thing called the right to be forgotten. Like when I was in high school, one time I stole something off a desk of a principal. It was the master key to the school. Statute of limitations. I think I'm okay.
I think you're fine.
But what that master key allowed certain not do-gooders to do, like me, was break into the cafeteria and open a giant can of peaches and eat peaches after hours and break into a janitor's closet. I have no idea why I was doing this, but maybe it was a part of me that wanted to explore a life of crime. I don't know. But the principal, also I bragged to friends of mine, I couldn't keep my mouth shut. So he was certain that I had stolen the master key. I think what I ended up doing is just throwing it out because I got scared.
Yeah.
But he told me that the master key theft, he says, I know it was you.
Yeah.
He said, this is going on your permanent record. And I thought, my permanent record, which back then that meant on a piece of paper in a file cabinet.
Yes.
Now that I have just told you the story, it really is on my permanent record.
See,
because it's on the internet now, and it can be searched by, devices. They don't even have to have someone look for it. You can, and that's interesting. It's fascinating, but also a little scary, I think.
Well, being born in the early 90s is a fascinating thing because you had things from the 1980s in your house, and I remember there not being internet well enough, and I remember the 2000s pretty well. And what I'm saying is I graduated in 2012 and I went to a lot of underage drinking parties, and there would be fights and there would be kids that would act up. And Periscope and Facebook Live didn't come out until 2015, 2016,
That's
and
right.
Instagram didn't come out till 2011. So pretty much, I think I'm the last graduation class being 2012, and I think 2013 has this too, where we were lucky that there's really no proof that things happened. We were the
There's
last
no
of a
record of
dying
all
breed.
the ways,
Nope, not at all.
all the ways that you screwed up when you were young. And isn't that, again, the right to be forgotten should be somehow preserved. It should be illegal to look into, somebody's, I don't know at what age you have to take responsibility for yourself. We used to say 18 or 21. And maybe that's still good. But what a 13-year-old does, or a 15-year-old, or a 17-year-old, shouldn't they have the right to, not have that follow them around the rest of their life?
Well, you think about the brain of a teenager, and that's a very good point, Bob, because teenagers, what do people say, that your brain doesn't get ready until you're 25? Like, think about the crazy things you do. Like, you're not all there. You're a teenager.
Yeah, and you learn by making mistakes. And in fact, if you are in a straitjacket and you can't make mistakes because you're being under surveillance 24/7 by all your digital devices, I don't know how you learn, because the burned hand teaches best. I think it's a real thing. When you screw up and you go, oh, I screwed up, I got to not do that again. That's sort of how you build the building blocks of going in, becoming more mature. If you screw up and you get caught and you get beat every time, or it can always follow you around, is that better? I leave it to child psychologists to try and answer that question, or science to research it. But I know that scientists are worried about that.
What did you think? So growing up, I was a very hyper kid. I have ADHD and I'm also bipolar. And my grandpa died when I was 5, and I began having anger management issues. And my mom got me on medicine, and I've been on like Klonopin and all these different pills for the last quarter century. And what I want to ask you is, what did you think about the 90s, where they were just prescribing kids like pills like they were Tic Tacs?
Yeah.
Exactly.
This is a tough one. It's a tough one because, look, I'm currently being cared for by Western medicine, and a lot of it is miraculous in how it improves the quality of people's lives. And for people who might have been marginalized or made fun of or stuck because of certain conditions, these drugs are a godsend. On the other hand, I might have been diagnosed all of those things because I was a difficult child and didn't fit in with other children. And I'm proud of being obsessive compulsive, because I think is probably wouldn't have had a career that was nearly as good without it. And what is ADHD? Like, to me, if you're creative, you're like, it's almost the same as ADHD. It's like, I'm not going to just go 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to go, ADD. It's easy as 5, 6, 2. I'm just going to, to be creative is oftentimes to take the expected thing and do something different. So I have mixed feelings about it. Also, I'm the type of person who, if there's a side effect, I'll get it. On the end of all those, well, you probably don't watch the evening news because you're not 70, but at the end of all those prescription drug ads are all the things that, they can do to you. So I worry about that stuff, but I can't say for you, I can't say for anybody, whether they're good or not, is because everyone's unique. Have you ever gone off those things to make a difference?
Oh, so 2 years ago, the doctor that was prescribing it to me retired, and the place I was going to told me that they were going to reschedule me with a new doctor. Well, it's going on February 2022, and they're like, oh, we can't see you anymore. So they didn't like transfer me to the new doctor. So I had the panic attack, bro, where I was like, how am I going to survive without the Klonopin? Like, as great, and I was able to get it and whatever, but I was able to find a new person. But as much of a godsend and as helpful as Klonopin has been for me, it was quite scary how I was like, how am I going to survive without it? Like,
Dependent, yeah.
It's very frightening.
Have you tried therapy?
I talked to my shrink today at noon. I talked to him on the phone. I've never met the guy in person, but he lets me vent. And after I go, I realize that all my problems are very minuscule, like dating a girl or dealing with things at work. Like, that's the best part about when you see someone. Like, there's times you can have legitimate problems, but today I was like, wow, like my life's pretty good.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think there's a balance between medications and, something called cognitive behavioral therapy, where you, instead of trying not to feel certain things, like I told you, I was made paranoid at a young age. I had panic attacks. I went to the hospital. I did all that. I would have probably been diagnosed if it was 90s with something that some prescription drug company could make some money off of. Because, humanity is a business. Anyway, on the other hand, if you look at stuff and hold it out, at arm's length and see what you're going through as not something you're trapped in, but just something you're feeling, sometimes you can interact with it differently and, make some progress just by doing that. If you know what I mean.
Oh, for sure. So,
yeah,
this has been
Ryan, you sound like a very bright 30-year-old, by the way.
Thank you.
Very self-aware.
I've had a lot of great mentors over the past 12 years since graduating that have helped me. Like, it's crazy to think that guys like Brother Weeze and BJ Shea, I have their phone number and I can call them whenever. Like, I think a lot.
Yeah. Well, I'll be changing my phone number in an hour, so I just want to let you know we're not that close. Just teasing.
I know.
Yeah. And so, listen, curious, because we began with, the boomers who have not been great stewards of society. And there were times when we were, by the way, we were peace, love, and understanding, and we were, protesting capitalism, and we believed in conserving things and taking care of the planet. And now, there's kind of a divide between the do-nothings and the do-too-muches. You ever heard that expression?
Yes, but I'm not quite sure what it means.
Well, I don't want to put political parties on it. But for example, when it comes to global warming, it's bullshit. It's nothing. We don't need to worry about it. That would be the do nothing. But then when it comes to the other side, it would be like, we've got to buy everybody a free electric vehicle, and we have to, every child must have this, and everyone who wants to come into the country. You see what I'm saying? Is
yes.
I know I'm going liberal versus conservative, but I call myself a radical centrist because I think they're both wrong. I think that the whole meaning of life is that we have these unsolvable challenges that we have to somehow create a balance that makes us civilized and decent to each other and works for the world. And in this current everybody has a megaphone environment, it's torches and pitchforks on either side. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, totally. Like, nobody's ever like happy with, nobody's ever content or grateful. It's like more, and I'm guilty of that.
So, and there's not a lot, like compromise is not a good business model. Business model is the more we can dramatize and make people on the edge of their seat, then the more clicks we'll get. So anyway, that's the world you're in.
Oh, yeah. Can't wait.
At age 30, what do you think of that?
There's not really an easy answer. I just think that there's a big divide where people that maybe were born into money or born into a generation with more money, there's not a lot of compassion for other people. And this could be a boomer talking about a boomer, but and so it's not just boomer versus millennial, but there's a lack of compassion lately for people that are having a hard time in life. It's like, oh, suck it up, man it up, or blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I think after COVID, we just kind of, because I remember when COVID first began, we were supposed to come together as a country and blah, 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 and da, da, da. And I think there's just a disconnect where more than ever, Bob, everybody's out for themselves. And that's fine. But it seems like nobody cares about other people.
Yeah. Well, let's see. You said everybody's out for themselves, and that's fine. Yes, to some degree, competing, winning, a little taste of greed is good, but ultimately for civilization to exist, we have to cooperate, or we can let the machines take over.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The artificial, what is it? Wally? Where's Wally? Anyway, but this has been really fun, Ryan, talking to a millennial. This is like, I wouldn't have a reason.
I know this has been a lot of fun. Before I let you go, Bob, when it's all said and done, how do you want people to describe you as a person and the Bob Rivers Show on all the different forums it's been on?
Oh, well, I mean, the show was a great group of people. You can listen to clips of it. It's gone into the internet, so it's part of my permanent record. And I'm super proud of the show. The Twisted Tunes and all of the comedy records produced over the course of 40 years. Some of them are still popular, so I'm really happy about that. But really, my son is a stand-up comedian, and I did this performance, and you do your performance. The purpose of a performer is to bring some joy, to bring some happiness to somebody, or drama, but happiness, like enjoyment. And so it's actually been how I'm remembered. I don't know. How I remember it is it's been a privilege, and it's been fun, and I got to meet so many cool people, and still do from time to time.
That is a very humble answer, because I feel like a lot of people that are, let's say, as successful as you would maybe be cocky about being in a Radio Hall of Fame and being one of the best parody artists of all time and one of the biggest shows ever in a top 15 market. They would have an ego.
I'm not disputing any of that, by the way, Ryan.
I'm not disputing it either. I'm saying, but you didn't include that in your answer. You're very humble about being one of the all-time greats.
Those are all blessings, and it feels like they came from luck, to some extent, being surrounded by great people. And if I had a skill, it was knowing how to pick those people and encourage them and be a good coach and a conductor of, the improv chat. Those are all the results of a lot of work. So that part, I'll say to anybody, including my son, the comedian, anybody who wants to do show business, don't do it halfway. I mean, you've got to, I called it king's wages for slave labor. It was, it's a lot of work to do it right. And the rewards may or may not come. There's plenty of great, talented people who deserve recognition who might not get it. So, again, it's a blessing. And just to get a call from a guy like you, who's tomorrow's generation of radio, podcasting, or whatever they call it, that's an honor too. And it's been a pleasure, Ryan.
Well, Bob, keep up the good work. I'm sending you blessings about everything you're going through with your health. I know you're going to kick its ass. And thank you very much for coming on my show.
All right. And it's been a pleasure. And I know the clock is ticking on that vasectomy reversal, but give it a lot of thought.
I know. I might. I think maybe in 3 years I might just reverse it, and then, we'll figure it out. You
might meet someone really special.
That's my thing. I am very envious. The one thing I am super jealous of the boomers about, not the money and opportunities and everything, it's the fact that the women seem more loyal. Like, it seems like, I don't know. It just seems like dating was more classy back then.
I will say that there's no Facebook and Instagram, and there's no record of it. So you're wrong.
Oh,
I mean, I don't mean you're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong.
No,
Human beings, we all screwed up in 18 different ways. It's where you're just not when there isn't as much evidence. Let's just say that.
Oh yeah, like there's no proof. Not that there's no proof. But can you imagine if there was a cell phone at Woodstock?
Oh, yes. All we have a few naked people bathing in the mud, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. Absolutely. Ryan, be well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate this. This has been Hoppe Hour. I am your host, Ryan Hoppe, signing off. Goodbye.
Hoppe Hour. Hoppe Hour.
And like that, he's gone.
Hoppe Hour is now over.